Hi, welcome. Just giving a moment for people to filter in. Hi, Denise. So great. Thanks for coming to join us on this Sunday to explore the Karpman drama triangle with a special twist of through the faithful, the unfaithful, and the interloper. So today you'll be hanging out with me and Swami Rahasya. And we're here with the Shakti Shiva Academy, which, for those of you who don't know, is the legacy school for Dr. Shakti Malan, who left her body in 2017 and left us with this just amazing amount of work and had just started this school before she passed away. And it is a complete honor and privilege and joy to be continuing on with this material and sharing it with all of you because it's really profound and it's so rich to come together from across the world and feel that other people are in such explorations and desire to be in full honesty and connection with this life. So, welcome. That's just a moment of gathering. And as before we get in any further, let's just take a moment to get out some arrival jiggles of finding the right link and showing up in a new space and allowing for the not knowing, the letting go of anticipation, but just of being right here, right now. And if you would like to say where you're from in the chat, I love seeing that people are here from all over the world and just getting a sense of this wide net that we're casting coming here together in this same time and place to explore this material together. And of course, it's always appreciated if you have your camera on. I know there's many reasons why you may not be able to do that, and that's totally fine. And just saying it is such a joy to see faces. Okay, Somerset West, I don't even know where that is. And Eastern Cape, Sonoma, California, Versailles, France, Ohio, United States, Western Cape, more South Africa, Warsaw, Poland, Cape Town, Cape Town, and from Costa Rica, welcome. Terrific. Mill Valley, more California, South Africa, Pretoria. Hi, Rena. Hi. Okay, welcome. Today's call is set to be 90 minutes, and I will make a distinct pivot point at the 90-minute mark, though there may be questions and things to continue on, and we'll do that for as long as we need to do that in order to get all the questions answered that are alive today. But I will make a distinct pivot point so that people who have it in their calendars that this is a 90-minute class can leave guilt-free, and anybody is welcome to find the recording at any time. So in a moment, I'm going to open the space with a deeper drop in after we do some more introductions of myself and Rahasya. And then we'll move into a teaching piece about the drama triangle with a bit of experiential, and then leaving plenty of time for questions and about the teaching or about the upcoming sexual shadow integration course, because that's part of what we're doing here today, of course, is saying, hey, we're going to be teaching this year-long course starting next month. And this is just a taste of the material to get an idea of what's there. So the invitation today is to be here in heartfelt conversation. And it's that if you're here in inquiry, that your sharing is offered from the vulnerability of your own personal experience, and holding this as a sacred container together, requesting that you actually carve out some time and give yourself the gift of this space to be in your body, in your attention, and not just skimming the surface like I know that we're accustomed to doing in many Zoom formats and online, that it's really easy to multitask and do other things. And so if you've joined us here live, especially, please take the opportunity to actually drop in and allow yourself to feel, because that's the core of what we keep coming back to again and again in this work, is that it's all about being willing to feel, being willing to stay in your body, being willing to have the familiarity with yourself of, oh, this is me feeling intensely and not needing to leave. Okay. So I am Lisa Grace, and I am senior faculty member here at the Academy. I've been teaching classes since 2019, and I have a background in performing arts and psychology, and I'm about to graduate from seminary school, which was also a surprise to me to go that route in my life. And I have a background with BDSM and Hakomi therapy. And so the whole range of working from vast intensity to the greatest of subtlety. And I met Shakti in 2010 and did everything that I could with her. Really, my life was kind of pre-Shakti and post-Shakti in the way that the awakening was invited with the invitation that she was. For those of you who don't know, I have a picture here to share with you, just to show some of the spirit that we're bringing into these courses, so we can hold her here in this presence of the Shakti Shiva Academy with that joy and delight, and the way that she embodied the full range of human expression and invited each of us into such honesty. So with that, it is my complete honor to be teaching along with Swami Rahasya, who was one of Shakti's teachers and is actually referenced a lot in the work of the course, the Sexual Shadow Integration. And he's here today and joining us in this whole course to delight us with his stories and his particular depth and irreverent and unflappable nature. So I'm going to pass it to Rahasya to introduce yourself.
What am I supposed to do after an introduction like that? Well, let's hope it turns out true enough. No, I met Shakti long ago. It would have been in 2002. And it was, I mean, all my students back then all blossomed in their various ways into their teaching. They're not here to teach what I've given them to teach. They go their own way with it. And Shakti went a particularly strong way with it. Like the Tibetan movement, you've heard of Tantra, I'm sure, in the context of Buddhism. But what the old Tantrikas did then is they took their understandings from the fast and horrible, harsh path that they'd been on, and Shakti took her understandings from the harsh and horrible path. Hell, she had me for a teacher, poor darling, for a whole lot of the way. And then they took that understanding and made it more generally accessible. Tantrikas tend to deal in the lessons beyond the monastery, outside of the monk environment, very involved, mixing the world, mixing the spiritual, encountering both. And that's the way Shakti learned. And then the way she taught, making her understandings accessible. And on a beautiful level, her work is really gorgeous, because if you take it with the tantric flavor of intensity, it's a fast path. Those methods are good. It's hard to overdo them. And that's the usual characteristic of monastic teaching. If you take it on with a great intensity, it can be too much. Monastic teachings are usually looking for 10%, 20% compliance, and they work well if you give it 10 or 20% compliance. But Shakti's brilliance was she could make her lessons accessible to the strongest of seekers, and also a good hint for those who just need to start moving a little bit. and start questioning what they're so sure of, what we all grow up with, all that lovely certainty that has to be destroyed along the path. And taking it that way, gorgeous to see her work continuing. Um, Her acolytes, I mean, Lisa is hugely a part of that. Claire Moore also in California, and over in South Africa, Rianne, um, her longest devotees. And they do a beautiful, beautiful job of continuing her work and even coming even to the thing of inviting me to get involved, which is a delight and lovely to see you all and lovely to see people from all over the planet and quite a few faces more and more that I know. Jen there at the middle of the top of the screen, for example. Hello. And yeah, this is a nice piece of work. It's good for opening up and exploring. And as Lisa was hinting, the important thing is always we use story, we use all sorts of things to get to the feelings. But should you feel anything come up in this, and, by all means, put it away for later a little bit, just on the basis of, getting through what we're doing today. But later, in your own privacy, it's a great discipline, every day even, to get to the list of, okay, what did I put away for later? What did I not feel in fullness today? Out of what happened, but also out of what was triggered, if something of the past was lifted up for me. Ah, and catch up, catch up. It's all that we need to do to catch up is feel the feelings that are there to be felt. That's all. And yeah, in the service of that quest, I hand you back to Lisa.
Yeah, thank you. So let's open the space by getting deeper into the body. As Rahasya is hinting, as we're playing around with this material, and this is true throughout the entire course, it's bumping into a lot of heavily protected places and a lot of the unknown. And that gets very alarming. It's really facing right where those edges are, where the shame and the discomfort and the unknown come up, and challenging the recognition of, oh, this is what I'm holding on to. This is what's important to me about the way that I'm viewed, the way that I want to be received in the world, all of that conditioning about what's safe, what's going to get me kicked out of the club, what's going to be in the deep survival level of what I need to have here with me now. So, coming back to the body. So, taking a deep breath and slowing down, letting anything that you're consciously aware of right now that's holding you from being fully present right here. And actually, let's reach out and gather all of those dangling pieces, all of those distractions, everything that could be pulling you out from being right here, and lovingly gather it right up into your center. Just so it's acknowledged as, yes, all of me is welcome here. Nothing of my life is separate. This isn't some special pure space where there's only a certain little strip of me that is fit to be here. This is all of you. And letting that gently shake down in your body. It's like shaking a cereal box and feeling the contents find all of the space and come to rest down at the bottom, down right into your seat. So starting with the breath, this breath is such a miraculous thing that it's here all the time, giving us these waves in and out of the body, these constant opportunities to be in the noticing of the contraction and the release and the natural flow of the stretch of the skin and the caress of the breath. So, taking a moment to notice your breath as it slides into your body and touches every corner of you on the inside, like the most delicious drink of water touching dry soil. It's finding all the little cracks, all the little ways in, and seeping all the way down to the tips of your fingers and the ends of your toes and the top of your head. And inviting that stretch and release down through your solar plexus and your belly and down into your hips and your genitals. And as you bring the focus into your breath, want to evoke the quality of equanimity. That's no attachment. That's holding it all simply as what is here. Here we have this beautiful dance with the breath, with the air surrounding us, of noticing this generous, available breath that has no attachment to where it just was, no attachment to where it's going, but simply feeling that in and out, weaving quality of the breath, and how easeful the air slides into your body and slides out without any attachment to who you are, what is happening here, any meaning making. See if you can really become one with this breath, with this quality of equanimity, of spinning the wheel of in and out. How it has its own simplicity, its own generosity and depth, but a simplicity of what is simply here. And I'm not giving you much guidance here about how to do this. There's so many ways we love to come in and make ourselves wrong and attach to, oh, I'm not doing this right now. The invitation is simply to surrender into this cycle, into this wheel, into this relationship of non-attachment, holding equanimity. Like swimming in a giant sea of existence and forgetting if you are the fish or the water itself, the waves. And a few more breaths of luxuriating in this space, just as easily as the waves lapping on the shore, in and out. And is there anything that you can set down in this moment to let yourself more fully receive that gift of the ever-flowing equanimity? Going right into the center of it. And keep going with that gentle spinning of the wheel and come back down to your seat. Feeling yourself here in this human-bodied experience. That's part of what we're doing. This house of our consciousness. And take a little notice of that space that you were just in. getting a taste of that ever-flowing dance of the in and out, of the equanimous non-attachment. And noticing that ease, that splendor. And taking a moment to check in with your eyes before we come back out of dropping your eyes softly back into the back of your head, letting your eyeballs be heavy so that they're not reaching towards life. So that what you have here is really connecting you with your deepest center. I find it helpful to almost picture strings on the back of the eyeballs that get pulled down, down your spine, letting them rest deep in your being, deep in your center, so that they are truly what you are peering out of and not what you are needing to pop out of and go and assess and interact and be more a part of, but really being with you. And when you've really found that depth of connection with you, keeping your deep, luxurious breath and you in your seat and your relaxed eyes, go ahead and softly open them and don't look back at the screen directly, but find yourself just here in this space, in this time. Taking big breaths in each direction, noticing, okay, here's the walls, and the ceiling and the floor, and the light, and the color and the shape. And noticing if your tendency is to pop out with your eyes and go and try to be over there or check that thing out and bring it right back to you, right back to your center. There's nothing to be doing here except for doing you. Letting go of any expectations, any right or wrong. And as we get into the material today, remembering that you always have you here in your seat. And this quality of equanimity, we are so good as meaning-making machines, humans, of finding an explanation or a wrongness or what it means to be doing anything. And this is starting with a foundation of a vast field invitation to release that and simply allow the beauty and the complexity of this being human and being right here. And developing the practice always of being able to stay as you feel, not just scare yourself and pop out and leave your body, but to be able to stay even when things are scary, even when things are big. So Rahasya is saying it's always an option to set it away for later. And then we come back and we do this work at another time and say, oh yes, there's my history. There's that old file that needs to get pulled up and felt through so that I don't have to keep returning to it. And so today we're diving in with this Karpman drama triangle. I don't know how familiar that is to people here. Can I see a little show of hands? Are people kind of familiar with this concept? Yeah, it's sometimes called the victim triangle. We like to call it the avoidance triangle. because it's such a convenient way to not be in your full experience as soon as you have all of these roles identified that you can be in, that the people around you can be in. So a little introduction to this triangle. It was created by Stephen Karpman in the 1960s, and it was a way of studying how people jockey for power in conflict. And I think he actually was working with sports teams. And so that gives you a little glimpse of when he first started this concept, it was all about that kind of power, like the how to get your strategy on and be in winning and losing. And so we've taken it quite a bit further than that and recognized how it's just a wonderful tool to be getting ever deeper in this relationship of honesty with self. And I was preparing for this and looked up about drama. I got very curious about the word drama because we hear it like in theater contexts and hear it about people making drama, people in drama and their relationships and how they're holding things. And it often involves an element of not speaking to each other, people not communicating fully. And there's a hook of tension that defines drama. And so part of the whole thing we're doing here is taking the recognition of those hooks and the non-communication, especially within ourselves, and cracking it open to see all the juice of what there is to learn in this cycle. And sometimes this is overt and sometimes it's covert. And what I mean by that is that when we're talking about the standard way of holding power, of the power over, power under, that the overt is referring more to the over strategies of domination and control of power. And the covert is more referring to the under strategies of the manipulation and the passive aggressive behaviors. But recognizing that these are all strategies, whether they're overt or covert, over and under, to get or gain access to power. And they are constantly shifting. We may have our favorites, we may have the ones that we identify with, and that's a big part of what we'll be getting in today of these hooks and traps of the triangle, is what we prefer, how we want to be viewed. So there's a great risk in this seeking the identification with one of the 3 points. So I'm going to hold up a picture, my little low-tech way of showing the triangle for anyone who is not fully familiar. And we have the rescuer of the let me help you. Oh, I'm so generous and magnanimous. Let me help you as I try to get my power. And the victim that's in the poor me and getting that identification and that angle of power, poor me. And over here, the persecutor. It's all your fault. So I am righteous and justified in however I treat you. All your fault. So there's the brief overview of the triangle. And the thing about the triangle is that it requires other people to play it. So if we're getting stuck and attached to being in one of these points on the triangle, you're going to require other people to be in the other positions on that triangle, or else you don't get to have your fun. You don't get to be in your role. So something that can also be recognized is how they are rotating all the time because of those attachments. It pushes people into the other points on the triangle. So this is starting possibly to touch on some discomfort here as you start to look at those points and feel immediately like, oh, I like that one. I like to see myself as the rescuer. It's probably the most common. And that means other people are in their victimhood, other people are in their perpetrator role, and I am doing really great in my life, in my advanced years, and all the work that I've done at being solidly in this helper, in this savior role. And see how easy that is to do. And then what that doesn't include is other people maybe don't want to be in that role, or what we are covertly or overtly forcing them into in order to maintain our identification. So before I get into further talk about the victim, I want to clarify that we're not talking about victim in the standard way of people who have, are in our world, it's quite common right now, people being bombed out of their homes. People are victims of assault and crime, and people who are needing to deal with the trauma that is induced in those events. This is looking at what we call victim consciousness. It's the holding on to that identification, like I was just speaking to, of this is who I am in life now. And noticing that hook and that feeling of power that's deep in there in some way of the I am a victim, this is who I am. And the victim it's this victim consciousness is unable to achieve the insights or enough self-awareness to take themselves out of this repetition of this disempowering pattern. So the rescuer has a moral obligation to do something, right? They've put themselves in this role. And they what part of what this serves is it pushes away the responsibility to actually stay and feel our own feelings. If we're heavily in the rescuer role, there's no space to actually stay here and take ownership and full feeling of what I am having in my experience. So it's keeping the named victim also in a disempowered place because I continue to need them in order to feel the fullness of my rescuer. So quickly about the persecutor or perpetrator. I mean, it's perfectly easy to spot when someone else is in that role, right? We can all do that. It's where it gets really tricky is recognizing where we have slipped into it. Remember that it's all your fault. And you hear how that even already just that it's all your fault has a little edge of slipping into the victimness. I mean, I'm being victimized by you. But here we're talking about the perpetrator and the way it comes out in an aggression. It's all your fault. It's all what other people do. So when we are extracting from our unconscious cycles, this is where the juice is. And it's leaning ever so deeply into exactly where our personal triggers are, where that discomfort is, where you can start to feel the shame flooding your system, and being able to actually stay and recognize when you're coming up with those excuses, coming up with the shifting into a different space, just running away from a relationship, and then going on and picking up the pattern right where you were of getting into that same dynamic with someone else. It gets stuck in the polarity. You know, the unconscious loves this. The ego loves this of being stuck in the polarity of all good, all bad, all guilty, all innocent. And if I'm in my innocence, that means you're in your guilt. I need somebody else to hold that role. It's all just jockeying for this position. You know? It's so hard to handle these aspects within ourselves. And so other people can show up and wonderfully example them for us. And we can see our projections out onto these other people so much more easily than we can see it in ourselves. And that's when it shows up as being really annoyed, really triggered, really set off by the way that somebody else is conducting themselves, somebody else is behaving. So learning to recognize when you're triggered, when you're a little set off. Is that just something that I am not able to sit with in myself yet? What a pleasure that they have shown up in my life and are highlighting that spot for me so that I can see it so fully when I haven't been ready to see it in myself. So we're calling this the avoidance triangle because of that, is how do we manipulate the roles And how do we stay in our projection and our triggering, and so that we can be in our avoidance of truly feeling? So that was a little overview of the triangle. And I'm going to pass it back to Rahasya to get us a little deeper into archetype and flow of the way that these all function together.
Thanks, Lisa. Archetypes, the word gets used a lot. Carl Jung used it. It's for me. I was raised not just by a crazy woman that did the Blavatsky thing to me and set me up. Every man doing anything worthwhile was set up by some woman. We all know the weather mind job of one of them. But I also had an engineer father, so I like to get things very physical and very comprehensible. That's the way I like to learn. And archetypes for me, the analogy is that you could say when the world was young, it started out basically flat. And in the analogy, the individual lives are the raindrops, and them falling on that land gives it shape. Mountains, valleys, all sorts of beautiful stuff. But what it means is after a while, a raindrop can fall 1 inch this side, 1 inch that side on one particular rock, and the difference will be it goes to a completely different river, completely different ocean. And the analogy runs well even into the flow of river. In the flow of a river, in the flow of a thing, of a pattern, one moves. And in a river, if you consider, if you watch a river, you will see the flow is in the center of it. In the middle of it, there goes the flow. And what you see over near the edge is what is called the drift. You'll see near the banks, the water turns around, goes back, circles. You get little whirlpoolings. And the individual drop, so to speak, to stay with our analogy, you're the individual drop of water. You go around and around and around a thing sometimes instead of moving through it. And one of those areas of drift, very much easy to drift into, is this cycle of the victim, the perpetrator, the rescuer. Or the victim, the rescuer, then the perpetrator, usually is the order of it. When it flows, just one aspect from my life, bullied when I was little. And so I was the victim, and I got to feel all the feelings of being the victim and poor me and everything. And then I went to daddy, said I learned to fight, took judo classes, etc. Found, oh, quite good at this. I liked it. And I became the rescuer. And probably one of my longest lasting friends from old school days is his friendship's based on his gratitude for me for rescuing from some bully. And I can't even remember which bully or what the circumstances were. And he wasn't involved. It was just that someone had shown up as a bully, and I went, oh, goody, I'm the rescuer. I'm going to take down the bully. And of course, the day did come when I realized, oh, I didn't really so much rescue someone there. I was the bully, and I'd become the perpetrator. And for me, that was very much with some hiccups, and life has its jitter, you could say, little movements back and forth. But in general, at that point, that particular dance of it was complete with me. I stopped looking to rescue others. I put that on hold unless it seemed really extreme. And I wasn't looking to bully after that. And I didn't seem to be much of a victim after that in that context. I went and had a delicious cycle and lots of what I'll call drift in other things in life. But in that particular aspect, I flowed through those steps and kind of on to what I had to go experience next. And if it goes like that, great. Where we tend to have trouble with this thing is when it becomes a cycle. We get out of the main flow of things, and we're now in the drift on the side near the banks, going around and around. And so we can find ourselves even in one day, even in a half an hour argument with a beloved, in a relationship. We can find ourselves, oh, but no, that's a harsh judgment on me. No, I'm the victim now. No, you're pushing me too hard, whatever it is. And move to then becoming, then the other drops out of being the perpetrator now, and they get into rescuer. Oh, come on, I didn't mean it that bad, etc., etc. Feel better, and okay, so I feel better, and now when I feel better, I think, oh, but I remember being aggrieved, so now I turn into the perpetrator and come back with it. And we tend to bounce around those three positions, or flow around and around those three positions. And if we find we are in a cycle of a thing going around and around, that's a pretty good sign that in terms of the flow of life, this analogy of archetypes being, you could say, the rivers, and us, the individual raindrop, having our journey, if we find ourselves cycling a thing, pretty good sign we're in the drift. Pretty good sign we're not really getting where we need to go. Something's stuck. And what sticks it as we go around that triangle is where we refuse it. At some point, we're just too much of a damn victim. This isn't okay. And we break the relationship, get out of the relationship, cut the engagement, whatever it is. Or we get exhausted in being the rescuer. I'm always picking you up. I'm always picking you up, etc., etc. And we get to a point where we refuse it. You could say, but why? Why not refuse it? It seems crazy anyway. Why suffer through this thing? Is because the suffering, if you look at it, sure, in life, there can be harsh events, as Lisa was referring to, where we get driven by the events, the circumstances, and so on. But mostly this engagement, if you look into in the regular relationship pattern, look at where you're the victim. Are you really, really being victimized? Are you sleeping in an uncomfortable situation? Are you, not getting proper nutrition? What's going on? And what your feelings are about seem to be disproportionate to the actual situation, or in the perpetrator, or in the rescuer, in any of them. If you find at some point you shy away from this quality that the feelings come up, and first big sign that something useful is happening is these feelings are disproportionate. They don't seem to fit, Like, sure, maybe there was some objection. Maybe there was some of whatever there was in the argument, whether it's about who drives or whether the toothpaste tube's left on, the lid's left on or not, and that sort of thing. It's not a big deal as it is, but if it's triggering a massive reaction, a massive amount of feelings in you, there's a sign that you're on the gold, you're really with the process of life, because those feelings have nothing to do with this moment. But this moment has everything to do in the way your subconscious set it up for you to access some feelings you once put away for later and get more up to date with living. You could say more completely load the program that is you. Get you more close to that lovely quality where you got the nice words, living in the moment. And so if there's a point where the other factor comes in as well, is such feelings, when they arise, the usual reason we have to stop, object, and in a way kick ourselves around that circle again, is that, damn it, the feelings that come up, they're overwhelming. And there's a really good sign, because the feelings you put away for later, getting to them doesn't consist in getting through the numbness, which covers the anger, which covers the hurt you put around them. It consists in getting to the feelings themselves, that which was actually put away for later. You can journey down into the hurt of it and back and forth as much as you like for your own account. None of that's required of you. What's required is that what comes up gets felt in fullness. And what makes it difficult, one of the things that make it difficult, is that quality of, damn it, why does it always have to be overwhelming? And it is overwhelming for a very simple reason. It's not truly overwhelming. When you feel it's quite within your capacity, very likely, to feel the fullness of it. But you pass through a moment where it distinctly has this quality of overwhelming to it. And it will always have that if you're really, on the stuff that needs to be felt, because it wouldn't have been put away for later if it wasn't overwhelming at the time. So pretty much everything that we raise from our past, that we get those reminders of, we get that possibility of catching up and felt back when, it will come with a quality of overwhelming. It will be. And part of a huge part of the work that we're doing is just encouraging that capacity to see, okay, maybe this is disproportionate, my feelings. And it's not about the other, it's all very involved with them. But when I'm in my privacy, when I'm by myself, I'll get to those feelings. And if it's feelings that I have to curl up into a little ball and try and disappear up my own arsehole, I'll just curl up into a little ball and try and disappear up my own arsehole. And if it's feelings that there's a rage in there that I've got to strangle the pillows, rage at the frustrations from parents, the frustrations from teachers, the frustrations from the little peer group, whatever, then I'll strangle the pillow. I'll have that feeling come through my body, whatsoever it is, just to let yourself go into it and let the body move with that feeling. And that's where we're always going, in the direction of playing catch up with life, catch up with the feelings. But this particular pattern, when it goes around and around and around, time to do what it takes to not have it go round and round. Because if it's going round and round, then there's some area of it you're not letting yourself feel in fullness. In my earlier example, if I'd resisted the view of myself as the bully, no, I'm not going to label myself that. I'm not going to identify as the bully, to use modern language. And then I just got into a righteousness and insisted that I'm being the rescuer and so on. That would have got me going around and around in a cycle of that. That would have done it. But I felt, fortunately, lucky for me at the time, though I didn't have the model I suggest you work with this, I was just nicely shocked, decently shocked enough at, oh, I've become the bully. That it pushed me through what I needed to feel about now being the bully, which was not the bulk of it in those 3 points of the drama, of the runaround. But it helped, it let life move on. It let me out of the cycle, at least in that context. I later had to go make a marriage and then do it really properly for a whole lot of years because I was resistant to feeling what I needed to feel.
And this
Uh,
brings us into the faithful, the unfaithful, and the interloper.
yep, 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 yep. Because there again, the how to say, in each of them, there's a whole richness of, I'm going to use the word triggering. And again, if I use the word trauma, understand, I'm not, when I use the word trauma, I generally like to be talking about what you call it Sybil level trauma. Stuff so severe it cancels your whole persona and forces you to start a new one. Now, that's a whole nother region of work. The stuff I'm talking about in the bulk of it is just that which was too much to feel in fullness at the time. And whatsoever it was, as short of the, you could say, Sybil level of trauma, personality splitting level trauma, short of that, what we have to face is we can compare notes. We can try to say, oh, who's got more to face than who's someone else in some area, and we'll generally be pretty much wrong. I've worked with people who were physically beaten quite violently by their parents when they disappointed them, and people where the parent raised a disapproving eyebrow and gave no comment while reading their school report. And both of those can lead, both of those can give feelings which are much too much to feel in fullness at the time, can be put away for later, and getting to them later, the kind of things that have to be set up by the subconscious to trigger those, bring them up to memory, and the experiencing of them later. There's really, you'd be amazed how little there is to pick between those two. and we'll tend to label the one real heavier abuse and the other one, well, it's all in your head. If Papa raised an eyebrow, whoop-de-doo. No, it's much the same put away for later. It's I'm being rejected by the parents. It's, you know, they've been my whole source of life, source of support. That's all threatened. It's a deep shock in either case. Too much to feel in fullness. So whatever it is that it leads us into. But now this particular triangle we're looking at, this habit, is each of the 3 points is worth considering. And much as you may say, well, I've ticked 2 of those boxes, but not all 3, look a little deeper, expand your definitions a bit, and you'll see there's a quality of that too, most likely. And the 3 positions that we're after just exploring here is in a relationship. We culturally like to think of a relationship as 2, but so often there's 3, and the one's being the faithful one, and the other's being the naughty one and is screwing around, the unfaithful one. And then one's being the interloper, one's being the one that comes in and has some kind of relating with one of those 2 in the couple. And if you look at each of them, they come complete with, or if you look into them, and the invitation is really to see, where do they trigger you? Either in your judgment of when someone's being the faithful one, well, they shouldn't be, they should stand up for themselves, they should get out of the relationship, or they should also screw around, or, we might have 100 judgments and answers about what they should do, and 100 judgments on ourselves and things when we're doing it, when we find ourselves doing that, being the faithful one, and then, why am I doing this when the beloved is playing elsewhere or whatever else is going on? And it's just such a rich area. Lots of feelings are available around that. And when we're being the unfaithful one, oh boy, the being ruled by a desire. You might not think you want to do a thing. You might even not think, I was so good through a long monogamous relationship on my end, monogamous, that I had. But I had my unfaithfulnesses, even if it was just stopping my motorbike on the way home to visit a particular friend who was a very enchanting, very witchy woman. Damn, who does she remind me of? Anyway, well, anyway. But I would stop by her place and just have a cup of tea and talk deep, intimate things and do a bit of gazing into her eyes. And then I'd go home and, I hadn't been unfaithful, but I'd been unfaithful. I'll go with Jesus on that one. As it is in your heart, that's the way it is. And that triggered lots for me. I had so much that came up around that, all lovely stuff to feel, all lovely, overwhelming stuff. And when one's being the interloper, and yeah, had my times of that too. I strange phenomenon when I was young, 21-ish, 19, 20, 21, around there. I'd occasionally just be friends with a friend's girlfriend, but buddies. That's how I'd feel about it. Then at some point, I'd rather be sitting on a bed together and the girl would attack me, and one doesn't want to be impolite, or such was my excuses. And I'd find myself being the interloper. Oops. And so much rich stuff to feel there. So from here, as we explore this, it's just getting into, in inviting yourself into what's around that. What's around that when I'm doing it? What's around that when the beloved's doing it? And look for, is there a thing, can I spot, oh, there's something overwhelming to be felt? And if you can note for yourself, if you find anything as we go on today that, okay, no, there's some scary stuff there. I invite you to get your Addams Family perversity on and go, ooh, how scary. Oh, is it, how overwhelming? Is it going to be completely overwhelming? And then invite yourself to it, just in your own privacy. Let
So
yourself feel what needs to be
let's
felt.
go along to actually guiding into that, of starting
Yeah,
with the
there you
faithful.
go. Yeah.
So, everybody, if you can think of a time in your life when you have identified as the faithful one, and maybe it isn't so direct as that there was some cheating going on in the relationship, but there was some way in which you were holding down the fort of the faithful and feeling, I know that as soon as I start dropping into it, there's this sense of just this purity and dressed in white, and I'm I'm holding all of the morals and the larger ground, and really holding, if I weren't here showing up this strong, pure way, then I don't know what would happen. We would just be a mess of morals here. And feeling that righteousness, but also dropping into the victim place of, oh, I'm the one who's holding the weight here. I'm doing all of this for us. So that's a little way that it shows up for me when I drop into this. So see if you can find a space for yourself now. And taking a deep breath and finding yourself in your seat and really dropping into your body and noticing what urges take you into this role. What draws you there? What are you getting out of this? You can take a couple of deep breaths if you need to, pulling you back into your body and letting go of any judgments or shame, and knowing that this is just where you're touching the juice of this exploration for yourself. And letting yourself feel what's here to be felt. What is it giving you to be here? And from there, noticing, how do you feel about the other two? You're busy being faithful. And how do you feel about the unfaithful and the interloper in this equation? Taking a look at them, and there, go ahead, feel your judgments. Oh, Rahasya, you have a great story about this, of being the devoted partner for 10 years in your monogamy, and how this dynamic right here allowed you to avoid jealousy. I want to say for just a moment about that.
Yeah. Like when it flows, it takes you to the feelings you need to feel. But I had um, really a very powerful reframing of jealousy. So when I was being the faithful one, I was going to be untroubled. And untroubled because jealousy, I had it reframed as a fear of competition. And that put it in a very easy zone for me because, hey, compete with this. I'll compete. Sure, you want to compete. And if I feel outclassed, I'm outclassed. There's no point in competing. There's no shame in it. And okay, she wants to have an affair with a poet. I'm not even into writing her poetry. Okay, so Go screw your poetry. Okay. Whatever it was, I was able to reframe it or count it as not an area I'm interested in competing. Yeah, you go do your thing. And I did it so well because I'm a Tantra flavor learner. So something that someone would normally give 10% compliance to, we typically bring 120% compliance to it. So I really reframed it. I was really safe from all the feelings that could trigger in me. And it took a while, but uh, subconscious doesn't make mistakes, or it can, but it doesn't make them often. It's cleverer than us. My subconscious had picked this particular woman as being, really good trigger for pretty much, I would rate it afterwards as 80% of what I had put away for later that needed to be felt. And jealousy was a big chunk of that. I was a child, and then, parents acquired another one, and half my support and love went away. There was jealousy. I had lots of stuff put away for later around that, lots and lots. But I'd armored myself. I'd found a way to, in a way, perpetuate the cycle by not passing through what I needed to pass through there.
Yeah, can
And
you see how the reframe to the competitiveness took him
mm,
completely out of any victimhood
yeah,
or any of the feelings that were really there?
right. I got to avoid all those feelings of being the victim in the situation. And that's very much connected with being, the faithful one. Is we'd say generally that's the one we'll point at and say that's the victim of it. It's got other sides to it as well. I mean, the way I held it when I was in that and staying in that, being the faithful one, it gave me an incredible righteousness. you know, and it basically was a very thorough avoidance of going around.
So there's a great
Circle.
examples there. Like the righteousness is a sense of power.
Yeah,
All of these, we're looking for where is this jockeying for power.
yeah. And when you
So moving along to the unfaithful.
right, you go, the unfaithful. Ooh.
Mm.
Ah, well, I
Yeah,
was very,
from a moment ago where you were dropped into the faithful and you might have had some very hard judgments about the unfaithful. So this is your opportunity to move into a different position on the triangle and drop into this experience. Is there ever a time where you have been unfaithful, like Rahasya's example of stopping for a cup of tea? Oh, that's all. That's all I'm doing. Having my tea between me and Jesus. So taking a moment to really feel yourself there. When you have been pulled into being unfaithful, what is the justification there? What urges have taken you into that? How does it get spun?
look at the power of your subconscious to generate your desires. Because if you're unfaithful, you're very often tortured with inconvenient desire, no?
That pesky desire.
Yeah.
And what the no man in his own heart is a villain. Who said that?
Marcus Aurelius, yeah, Rome's enlightened emperor. Or yeah. And
Yeah.
that's a worthwhile one to look deeply in whenever you're judging anyone. It's easy to judge them as the villain, call it the two cheaters or whatever, come up with a label like that. But you're missing, you're not really on the truth whenever you're assuming someone's the villain, anyone. No,
Mm.
no, you're missing so much because villainy, the villain is a fiction. It doesn't exist.
And
No,
just like talking about the all good, all bad, black and white thinking,
Right, but also
That does
even
not
if someone's
exist.
doing something you can call incredibly ugly and nasty and destructive, go into them, get into their head, try get a bit into their shoes, and you'll see pretty soon, from their perspective, they're not being the villain. From their perspective, this is necessary, even if it brings suffering or it's healing. It's like, that will be their view. And
The
in their own heart.
neurolinguistic programming uses the presupposition that there is always a positive intention.
Yes.
Everyone,
Yeah.
everything has a positive intention, or else wouldn't be doing it. Now that the methods might get very hairy, that we can be very disapproving of the methods and they're causing people harm. But as Rahasya is saying, that there is always that some idea of greater good, not greater good, something that is being defended, something that is being fought for, something that is a positive intention.
Yeah. But the motivation is never hand-wringing villainy, you know, even if it's taking a revenge. There's a feeling of, I'm administering justice here. We're restoring something right to the world.
Mm.
And
Okay,
even the
so
most
coming
depraved
from
Nazi dictators, yeah, they think they're doing good in their way.
so hopefully this is a little releasing or supportive in where you can feel the tightness or crunchiness of the shame coming in of, oh, how could that be important to me? How could I be focused on that? How on earth did I cause that harm or make that mistake? And of actually recognizing some with kindness and yourself that there's something else going on there. So as you drop into this experience of what urges take you into this experience of being the unfaithful, let yourself really feel what is here to feel. What were you wanting? And else, how did you justify it? What were you needing? Where did it bring you back some sense of power? And again, from here, noticing how did you feel about the other two in this triangle? Here you are in this traditional perpetrator role. And how are you seeing the other two? If you actually drop in with some kindness, with some witnessing, equanimity about yourself in this role. I know this is a deep rabbit hole, but we're going to move along because we're a little short on time. So taking a moment to shake that off. And moving along to the interloper. A couple of things that have come up when Rahasya and I have discussed this. I realize that for me, something especially in my history and still in my present, is where I have been the interloper in my work, my session work with people around sexuality, and where I have come to realize that people are not always in sessions in transparency in their lives, of those moments. And so how do I deal with that as the interloper? And what really happened a few years ago in my journey was realizing where I was still dropping the sticky tendrils from my desire to be desired, and how willing I was in those situations, and how my subconscious was still dropping the breadcrumbs, for somebody to pick up so that I could get some fulfillment, so that I could feel met in my desire. And as soon as I actually did the full work with feeling those feelings, then it shifted what was coming in, and it shifted my clarity with how to hold the integrity and the inclusion of honesty, because that's ultimately what I would really like once I actually go in and diffuse this cooking, smoldering temptation of the desire to be desired. Or even on a base level, just the need for clients and to make money and hold on to people by allowing for that lack of relationship with honesty to be in the room. It was very convenient. So there's that one, and also the example of when a new sibling comes in. Or if you're an only child and then there's a new sibling comes into the family, and suddenly there's all this attention and emotion going to that new little being. How do you feel about that? Or maybe you were that little being. Or maybe you've gotten to rejoice in being the younger sibling who got to take all that attention and be the little baby. So again, finding an example in your life of where you have been the interloper, and clearing a little space to be in flow and kindness in your body, and dropping into this experience of what urges drew you there. Letting yourself feel what's there to feel. And how do you feel about the other two? Or I was in this example as being this healer, or offering touch work, session work, and feeling, seeing myself as the savior. Well, of course, this person needs this touch. They need me. I'm helping. And again, I'm sorry we don't have more time to hang out here and explore each one of these, but taking a moment to let go of that one. And come back to you in your seat, right here in this moment. And I just want to acknowledge the importance of keeping the humor alive. Rahasya is great at that, like referencing the Addams family perversity of that delight in that level of sweet suffering. Oh, the darkness. And here, that keeping the humor alive is where it becomes a kind of caricature to play with these aspects of self, where you can take just the one little percent of you that feels these things and allow it to become bigger than life and become like a caricature. So hopefully that is supportive in getting out of the fear and the attachment of that, oh, this means this is who I am. Oh, isn't that awful? I'm this shameful person who would have this urge inside of me or made that choice and caused that harm, whatever it is. And zeroing in on that one little percent of you in the vast, a full spectrum expression of human nature that every single one of us is, and how every single one of us has not only the capacity, but the vocabulary and the potential to be in each of these colors, each of these flavors at any moment. It doesn't say anything about what kind of person you are to actually touch that feeling fully. So, especially when you recognize that when you let it be that big and that fear of that, oh my gosh, I'm just a horrible person, the recognizing it when playing with it this consciously is that how it becomes one-dimensional. And that if you really take this one little percent of you and let it become 100% of the expression, then it is completely one-dimensional and it's no longer human with all of the complexities and sensitivities and specificities that we get to play with. So go ahead and allow yourself to feel, allow yourself to vent, to find the depth. And you're finding the ways to hold yourself. It's a lot of what we go into in the course is the different tools to be in this unearthing and to really be holding yourself and noticing with kindness where your survival urges come up, where your fight for power comes up. It's all bringing us into more of an honest, right relationship with our power and where we have kept our power shoved into the shadows and can actually release that vitality back into the flow, back into the conversation with ourselves as human beings. So, Rahasya, if you'd like to bring us home with how this all ties together and how to really change this pattern.
Well, what takes us into being any of those points or keeps us in any of them is desire. Desire has got, until it's done its job, it's got one agenda, is to get you up to date with everything that you put away for later. And if you look at them, sometimes it's in the aftermath of it. I mean, the interloper in particular. So the desire takes you into it and you find oh shit, I'm being that. Here I am having a cup of tea I shouldn't, or doing something else I shouldn't, whatever it is. And then people find out, or you drop hints, and it's either self-judgment or even the desire takes you into the judgment of others. Everyone pointing their fingers at you and calling you wrong. And what a gorgeous trigger for all the times that your parents pointed their finger at you and called you wrong. And at each of the points, there's a similar resonance. The faithful one, all the times as a child where you did your level best to meet the demands and it wasn't appreciated. And, when you see these things coming up, one encouraging point I've found is just to ask, can I imagine a childhood, any childhood, never mind my childhood, just a childhood, in which a pile of feelings, this is taking me into feelings of being, publicly shamed or whatever it is, or this is feelings taking me into putting my level best out and not getting anywhere with it, or following my desire and my desire is tearing me away from something. My desire is different from what's demanded. And in all those cases, I can't imagine a childhood where there isn't a whole lot of feelings put away for later about each of those areas. And my encouragement is just whatever, if it comes up, look, is it disproportionate? Good sign. Is there something in there? If I let myself into it, will it be overwhelming? Do I feel that little bit of vertigo, edge of a cliff feeling as I look at accepting it? Look at accepting what's there for me to feel. And it's not about letting someone else win. You don't have to tell them about it, but just in your own privacy, letting yourself in on these unpleasant feelings, letting yourself pass through layers of overwhelming things. And then the next morning, you'll be really surprised how much lighter you are, how much more space you have, how accusations and things and all sorts of good triggerings can come your way, and somehow they don't bite. The proof of this is in your life already. I'm sure all of you can remember something that used to trigger the hell out of you, reliably, like a button being pushed. And at some point, you had some circumstances arise, your desire took you into where you can't escape it. And it got overwhelming. And then after you felt what was there that came with a quality of overwhelming to it, that trigger's not a trigger anymore. Someone can play pushy that button and you look at them and go, you're trying to tickle me? What's going on? You know, there's areas which are now completely undisturbing to you in that way. And I'm just suggesting, as it was with that, so with everything. And everything you can do to, you could say, reduce the necessity for life to push you, for your subconscious to set up desires and drive you into more and more intense experiences every time you skip out of it and therefore have to go around again. Every time you manage to get into what needs to be felt, that breaks the cycling, that gets you out of that drift, and that puts you back in the flow for what's next in life. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. So you can see how this is such a potent place to play. And this is just a little taste of the kind of work that the sexual shadow integration course goes into. And what's beautiful about doing it in such a long format of the over the years, it really gives time to feel and explore all of these triggers and be out noticing where they're alive in life and reflecting those pieces of what's going on in our inner world, and to work with it, feel it, and then set it down and come up with the next one. Notice where the next trigger is. So it gives plenty of time to actually be in these processes. But right now, we have ran a little bit long to be giving all the time that I wanted to give to questions. But we can probably take one question and then we'll do our pivot and close up, and then we can stay on a little longer and take more questions. But if anybody has any burning shares about this process, is anything surprising or exciting? If you have any questions about any of the material, you can either raise your hand or put it in the chat. Maybe everything is still cooking. Mhm. Okay. Well, nobody is speaking up. Possibly some people still thinking, feeling into whether you want to expose yourself with a question. Oh, there is a question about the course from Marlene. What is the format of the course like you did tonight? The format of the course, great question. There will be modules released and a call every 2 weeks. And in the modules, there's a certain amount of learning, like there's I think, a whole month on this triangle, and there's different homework assignments. So you'll have all of the time to be in the inquiry and in the activities and coming up creatively with what it is that would perfectly challenge or explore or touch the the material that's coming up for you with each theme of each month. And then every 2 weeks, there's a live call, and the live call will be somewhat like this. Um, there will be more time for sharing, more time for probably some breakout groups, and it will be likely a pretty small, intimate group, so you'll be getting to know each other pretty well over the year and being able to check in and have little conversations. That I love group work, and that often people are working pieces that you yourself may not be ready to work yet. And so that's in the field of getting to see somebody else bring in that level of exploration. And also to see, oh, I'm not the only one working with this, or this is more common than I thought. All these different things that can come up with sharing in the small groups. And also there's the forum on Mighty for people to post the homework assignments and get feedback from myself and Rahasya. So that also is running the whole time. So you can be checking in, getting support, seeing where other people are at. So I find it's really, when stepping into such a journey like this, it's so supportive to be doing it with a group and be in it with other people and know that you're not just free floating on your own in all of your processes. Did that answer the question, Marlene? Yeah, great. Okay, I'm going to put a couple of things in the chat now, since we are getting to that 90-minute point. Of course, here's the link to check out about the course, and that has a nice description of all of the modules, so you can be really seeing what's going to be covered. And then I also have a discount code for anybody who is on this call of a 15% discount. And there you can see there's the one-time payment or working it out to 12 monthly payments. So you can register either way with that discount. There also is a financial aid discount available of 30% that you're welcome to apply for. And you can just reach out to me or Rianne. You can also, I don't have the links for this, but you can also schedule a call with myself or Rianne if you have any questions about the course, if there's anything that would help you get clarity on if it's really right for you. And also to check in with us if we think it's right with where you're at to be taking on such a thing. That's important as well. But that's in the link to the course. There's links where you can schedule a call with myself or Ryan. Let's see, what other goodies do I have? I also have, Rahasya has a book. It's called Terribly Tempting Tantra, just to see who that actually tempts.
And just for those who've already read my book, it's a retitling of it.
It's the same book.
It's the same book. Tiny changes, nothing of major anything. Yeah.
And Jen says, delicious book. Thank you. Yeah, it is there's lots of stories. It's a wonderful, playful, irreverent style of richness, and really fun read. Recommended. Okay, with that, I will close up this space for anyone who is needing to go at the 90-minute mark. And we can stay on for a little bit if anybody has some questions that they'd still like to ask. So thank you for joining us today. And just so much love and gratitude and blessings on your journey.
Lovely to see you all. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Mm.
Yeah, you're welcome, Lily. Enjoy. Hey, Denise, you're so welcome. Good night. Glad that you could join, you and Chris. Oh, we have Lucretia.
Hi there. It's Lucrezia.
Lucretia,
Um,
thank you.
I just wanted to ask, how involved is the homework going to be? Um, I'm very interested. I'm a little bit concerned about time managing the bliss dance course as well and work and life stuff. um,
Yeah,
is
how
it
to
is it
answer that
similar?
question.
Yeah,
It
sorry.
is, it is similar. I know that you've done other courses,
Sorry,
and
I just muted you. Um,
so the homework load is similar. Um, Again, I like it with the spread out time. Doing the 6 and 7 week courses have been very intense. But this you have a month to be exploring each module, and then a month off every 3 months to catch up.
mhm.
And the homework, they really are, I would call it choose your own adventure of the finding where your edge is of what you want to be exploring. I was giving an example recently when I first did this work 13 years ago with Shakti, and there was an assignment around shame. And one of the women in the course ended up doing for herself of pooping in front of her partner. So like getting on the toilet and looking into his eyes and just sobbing and releasing everything. And I was so horrified when I read about this. And I had this panic of, am I going to have to do something like that?
Yeah.
And of course, now here we are 13 years later. It's quite amusing to me that it was that much of an issue. But that's a great example of where somebody took the homework in the direction that was perfect for their edge, and I wasn't ready for it yet. And I mean, the homework didn't take her a lot of time to actually just do it, but there's a lot of process before, during, after. Um, a lot of material comes up, obviously, to be working with. So I'm just sharing that example as something that um, it's so hard to say what the homework will involve for you.
Okay, yeah, basically how much I want to put into it, or I feel I need to put into it, is dependent on how much time it'll take, sort
Yeah.
of, I guess. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Um,
Hmm,
Honestly, having participated in the Bliss Dance course, it's
mhm,
probably less time consuming than those assignments because you were having to go and search for certain things and develop certain presentations.
yeah,
So that was quite a bit of time.
yeah. Okay, thank you. I'll probably book a discovery call with one of
Great.
you. All right, thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Lisa.
thanks for being here. Good to see
Thank
you.
you. You too.
Hey, anyone else? There's still quite a few people here. You're kind of waiting to see if somebody else asks a question. Great. Hmm. Well, hopefully that means that lots of your questions were answered.
Yeah, I think I just like to say something about I'm not, I love your answer to the last question, but it just raises for me just a feeling to remind we work with individuals, yes, all together on the group, but you're each on your own journey. And the depth you're working at, if you get in touch with us on the app, there's the various forums where you can post your homework and so on, and we'll interact with it. We're advising you. Certainly there's a group, it's helpful. There's other people doing similar stuff in a similar direction. Yes, but your movement's not dependent on that. You're moving as an individual through this. And for me, this is a huge, sweet thing about Shakti's work and the structure she gave things, is it can be useful to you at whatever depth you take it. If you're going to really burst through a thing and go completely transcendent, it's there, it's available. If it's about stirring you into just looking at something confronting in life and getting closer to it and, risking going with the desire, risking that triggering happening, good, good. There's been plenty of times when that's been the huge movement for me. Is just a step of willingness, not even the trouble that's coming. And of course, then you get all the delicious trouble later. But you're moving as an individual. Sure, there's similarities to how we move. We can be supportive of each other. That's gorgeous stuff. But please don't ever feel a one size fits all thing that, oh, now I must this or I must that. No. Or now I must keep myself back to what everyone else is exploring. No, no.
Yeah, Rahasya, thank you for grounding that in, that this is such an individual process. And I'll keep bringing it back to the theme of kindness, of holding yourself with kindness, of that you're going to bump into all kinds of levels of safety where your personal capacity is, and of being able to be kind and not put pressure that you should be somewhere else, that you should be showing up just like somebody else in the group.
Of course, I've got a little story about that. I used to go take lots of groups, big time group junkie, me and wife back then. Oh, yes. And I was such a good participant. And then what got me was this thing of opening and really taking all the encouragement to a special place, a special time, unusual opportunity, etc. And then afterwards, having to kind of put back all my compressions on afterwards and just put back on all the armor I used for life. And it got very painful. And then I went on a group and I decided, no, I'm not being a good participant anymore. If I open something, I'm not making a distinction between this work and life. It's all life. And if something's open for me here, it's open for me, and that's that. And if something's not quite willing for that, or not complete with that, or not okay for that, not doing it. And I went on the group, and I was not a good participant at all. And it was one of the last groups I ever took. I mean, it was for me then. What I didn't realize really was I was taking self-responsibility for my journey. And archetypally, that's the point called mastery. Mastery doesn't mean you're the best in the world. It means you don't need to go to school anymore. You still can. It's good to take a lesson, sure. But your guidance, even the choice to go and take the lesson, that's yours. That's your choice. No.
Okay, with that, I think I'll close us up. I don't see any further questions. So thank you again for joining and being here and staying till the end. And we're totally available if anything else arises for you. Yeah, much love to you all. Thank you, Ava.